Hi there. You're very welcome to today's podcast episode. And today I am joined by Trevor Ó Clochartaigh. Did I pronounce that right, Trevor?
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Excellent. So I met Trevor. Well, actually, I didn't meet you. I saw you first on Galway Tedx, and he did an incredible talk on leadership. And the acronym is REAL, R-E-A-L. So I might actually, do you want to introduce yourself first, Trevor? Just give us a couple of lines.
Yes, my name's Trevor Ó Clochartaigh. I'm currently working in TG the broadcaster, as Director of Operations and HR. I've had quite a varied background, though. My life has brought me through starting out, I suppose, in arts and media and in theatre. And then I kind of ventured into community development for a number of years. And then I was a politician for a number of years. I was in the Shannon for 7 years. And then I came back to media again to work in TG. But I suppose leadership is always something that has been infused in everything I've been doing.
Yes.
And when I did a master's during lockdown, I just got very, very interested altogether in it. And then I started doing the R.E.A.L Leadership articles, and from that, the TED Talk, which we're probably going to talk about in a
Isn't it
little while.
amazing how
Yeah.
quickly so I know, let's say when you did your TED Talk, the acronym REAL. Do you want to tell us what that stands for?
Yeah, so I was trying to so I did the masters, and we led an awful lot of theory about different styles of leadership and how it
Mm,
manifests itself and how to have good leadership, etc. But when I was kind of re-going over the stuff myself, I thought I was trying to come up with an acronym that would make it easy to remember.
mm,
And the idea of real leadership came to my mind, and the three elements I see of the leadership that are absolutely essential, and without either one of the three, you don't really have real leadership, are resilience, empowerment, and authenticity. And I think, if you give me any example of a leader anywhere who really stands out,
yeah.
I think you can argue that they have all of those three elements in what they do. And for, what I try and do in my own head now is look at leaders who I think are not really delivering as they should be. You can normally pin
Mm,
it down to being one of those three elements is missing. So it's been really interesting. So I suppose the resilience obviously is that bounce back ability that you don't see a leader where everything has been hunky dory, where everything has gone right. And I suppose that mirrors my own life as well. And that
yeah.
I've had a road less traveled. I've been in leadership positions most of my life. Um,
Yes.
Sometimes things have gone really well, sometimes they haven't. But the ability to be able to bounce back from a setback is something
Yeah.
that I think makes a leader kind of stand out from the crowd. Uh, I think empowerment as well. There's a lot of research around leadership and followers. But for me, it's not really about having followers as such. It's more about empowering other people to come up behind you and to take over from you.
Yes.
And I think the best compliment a leader could be paid that is that once they step away from an organization or from a role, that the people behind them take over, so you don't even notice that they're gone in a way. Because I think
Yes.
leadership really is about empowering other people and creating more leaders and bringing those leaders forward to take up leadership roles and to make a better world in whatever sphere that they're working in.
Yes.
And authenticity is stands on its own in that I think you can only be a real leader if you're true to your own sense of values, what you believe,
Mm,
and if you walk the talk, if you try every day to do what you really believe in and stick by those values and make your decisions based on those values. And obviously, you're never going to do that 100% of the time, but if you keep coming back to that, I think
mm,
that's what marks out a real leader from any other types of leaders. I think you can have people in leadership positions who
yeah.
aren't necessarily leaders. You can have people of vision have a great vision, but maybe are not empowering of the people coming behind them. You can have authoritarian leaders who aren't empowering people coming behind them. Um, Certainly, you have a lot of resilient leaders who come back and back and back again and again.
Mm.
So they're the three elements that I came up with, and it just seems to me it's ringing true for me. And I'm sure people could add and detract from it, but I think those basic
It
pillars,
sounds like three core, really important elements.
yeah,
And you can imagine, like, if you had like a Venn diagram, and if you're listening to this, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in business, you know, and I think maybe people are probably mentally ticking off what they
Yeah.
have or what they're missing, And if anyone's listening to this, and also not just an entrepreneur or in business, but I think these applies to, self-leadership in your own life as well. So if anyone is listening to this, what are the symptoms of not having these three: resilience, empowerment, and authenticity?
I suppose one of the best examples I can give is because I experienced it is in the world of politics, and a lot of
Mm.
people tended to cry, why don't we have more leadership in politics? And I think some of the key traits in politics are that the leaders in politics, they definitely have resilience. They have to come back again and again, put
Yes,
themselves
that's for
before
sure.
people, get themselves re-elected,
Yeah.
take all kinds of abuse on social media, whatever. But the empowerment is where I think they have an issue, because
Mm.
when you're in politics, it's a dog eat dog scenario. You're trying not to empower the people around you because you're trying to keep yourself ahead of them and get elected ahead of them. So by its nature, politics isn't an empowering type of setup. Um, Authenticity as well. I think there is a huge issue around authenticity because people tend to spout the party line, or maybe have to present arguments and cases that they don't necessarily believe in, really, their heart
Mm.
of hearts. So I think that's why we find that the real leaders in politics are very few and far between. But I think there are some really good examples. I think Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand was a really good
Oh,
example
yeah.
of a
She's
real
super.
leader. She certainly had resilience, and she did amazing stuff during lockdown and when there was the shootings in Christchurch and stuff like that. Um, but she was also very true to her own values, and she had no problem espousing those publicly as well.
Yeah.
It's a shame she's out of politics. To be honest, I thought she was a breath of fresh
I
air.
think she may come back maybe when life rebalances a little bit for herself, maybe. Hopefully. We
Yeah,
need more people like her.
yeah. So that's a very obvious example for me of real leadership in practice, and
Mm.
we don't see it. I think you see it in organizations as well, where particularly if people aren't being empowered. I think you see a lot of people who like to be the decision makers, who like to think I have the vision and I know more than other people. And really, I think a real leadership is about sharing knowledge with people, having really good people around you, but also
Mm.
empowering people to make decisions. If you don't empower those around you to make the decisions, you're going nowhere, or you're not
Yeah.
going to be as successful as you could be. And I think there's a fear, an innate fear in people to allow that decision making uh, to be done by other people.
Yeah.
Because I think what goes with that as well is the knowledge that, if you're bringing other people up, they're going to make mistakes and things won't always go 100% right. But
Yes.
if you can get things right 90% of the time, and then you're building up that person to be another leader in their own right, then what
Exactly.
they will learn and what they can do working with you in the future will be much, much better and bigger. And they'll have that confidence, and they will take control, and they'll take initiative, which and maybe make much better decisions than you could make yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I worked in corporate for 14 years, and yeah, you see a lot of different leadership. And I think as well, now maybe it's changed since, but you know, we were the engineers or whatever, and you know, I felt there was a massive lack of vision between, we were the doozers, if you remember, down in Fraggle Rock, the doozers who did the work, and you were called to these big town hall meetings to get the vision, which was just boringly translated. But there was no, like that, the empowerment. I think that was massively missing. I'm sure there's companies now with way better. I mean, people like you, Trevor, who are working with companies, I'm sure, bring in knowledge. And I think it's bringing that knowledge to companies from the employee, manager, senior manager, all the way up, and creating a culture of leadership. Just because you're not a manager or senior manager doesn't mean you can't be your own leader within the workplace.
But I think as well, it's about people taking ownership of a process. So
Yeah,
you can have wonderful corporate documents and beautifully designed graphics around, what the vision for the company is, what the mission statement is, what the strategy is. But if you
yeah,
don't have buy-in from, say, middle management and the levels below that, you're not going to achieve anything. You're really not going to implement it, and they won't take ownership of it. And
Yes.
as soon as something goes wrong, people will start blaming others. So I think
Mm,
what you're looking for in an organization is where you have listening going both directions. So the people in positions of authority as such in the hierarchy are listening to those below them, because many of the time they are people closest to the coalface, or maybe closest in our scenario to the audience or the end users, and
mm,
they really know what the company needs to be doing better.
yeah.
And we maybe in management and senior levels need to listen to that and include that in the strategy. And then
Yes.
we all have a strategy that we can buy into and we believe in, and that's a two-way process, because then that's empowering. It's people feel empowered, they feel they're being listened to, they're more invested then in what they want to do in the company. They believe in the bigger vision, they believe they're being
Mm.
listened to, they believe they're important. So I think it's a bit of a no-brainer really to try and have a better performance overall. But
Yeah, and
it's surprising how many companies get that wrong.
I was just about to say actually that it sounds like a no-brainer. And I suppose one of the things is that a lot of people are promoted, from consultants, engineers up to managers, and they don't maybe have those skill sets. And I guess it's learning how to I suppose empower everyone to have what they need to deliver, so for anyone who is listening to this, they must be very interested to hear that you did your first TEDx talk, and that this talk that you did about the real leadership. So I love when you said how you got the gig. Do you want to share the story? Because I think there's a load of people who are going to be listening to this saying, I'd love to do a TEDx someday, but how do I get it?
Yeah, and it was something I would have listened to loads of TED Talks
Yeah,
over the years. And I loved them. And it was quite funny because as I said, I did the masters during lockdown, and I
yeah,
kind of had this fear of starting to forget what I'd learned during the masters. So I
yes,
thought, well, what's a good way of trying to keep it fresh in the memory?
yeah.
And I tied around with this idea of writing a newsletter. So I started writing a newsletter on LinkedIn, and I said my target was going to be to do this once a week for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I started writing them on real leadership. And within 2 weeks, I had started getting a lot of really positive reactions, lots of direct messages, and one from the guy in Galway City who runs TEDx. So it's a franchise scenario. It's not a profit making scenario from what I understand, but it's something that
Mm,
Cormac Staunton in Galway does because he loves to do it, and it's a really empowering and it's a really uplifting event.
mm,
So Cormac rang me, or he sent me a message and said, "Do you want to meet for coffee? I'd love to have a talk to you. We're doing TEDx. We're reviving it post-COVID in Galway in November, and we're interested to see if you'd be willing to do it." And I said, of course, initially said yes straight away.
mm.
Um,
And
but it's a very
did you
interesting
know
process. Yeah,
Cormac before this?
I'd seen him a couple of times because he works. He has an AV company, and he works in the university a lot around when there's conferences and
But you
stuff
didn't
going
know
on.
each other.
Not at all. No,
So I
no.
just want to, sometimes when you put your stuff out, whether you're sending an email or you're doing a blog or an article, you never know who's reading or watching your stuff.
No,
So
you don't.
this is,
Uh,
yeah.
and it was surprising for me. So he obviously just it picked it up via LinkedIn somewhere. He clicked in, subscribed, and read the article, and then gave me a direct message straight away. And it was interesting
Super.
because I got within 2 weeks, I think I had done 3 different podcasts within a couple of weeks, and I was amazed because I thought, look, if 10 of my friends read it, I'd be doing well. But I built up a whole list of subscribers, and I've a couple of hundred people reading every Sunday when I post, and I haven't really
Wow.
pushed it very much, to be
Yes.
honest. So I'm just really surprised that it's actually maintained that level over the 6 months, and I'm over the 6 months now. So my new target is getting to 12 months and see where we go from there.
And one thing that I know people might like to know about is what is your process for doing that article every week? So what I try and tell my clients is most people, when they say they don't get their marketing done, the problem is they don't schedule the creation time. And then they go, oh, I didn't get it done this week, and
Yeah.
do you want to share your process if you don't mind, Trevor, sorry.
Yeah. So I suppose it's about having a deadline, and
Yes.
it's making myself do it. So my logic around it was that I wanted this to go out at about 6:30 on a Sunday morning, because I'd seen from other people who do, and I read a lot of newsletters on LinkedIn, and I
Mm.
noticed that a lot of them came out on Sunday morning, and I thought that's when people are lying in the bed, they might have a bit of
Exactly.
lying, and they're scrolling, and the logic seems to have worked.
Yeah.
So I work back from there then. So I try and make sure that I have the post done on the Saturday and scheduled to go. And then I work back from there. So firstly, I brainstorm it and I look for a theme and I pull information together around a particular theme for that week.
Hmm.
And I like to keep it fresh as well. So I do that. So then I'll do a draft of it and I'll leave it and I come back to it. I do that in an evening after work,
Yeah.
earlier in the week, and then I'll come back to it a little bit later in the week. And then
Let
on
it
the Friday,
filtrate and marinate.
yeah, and you know, and even as you're driving in the car, then something else will hit you, and you think, oh
Yeah,
no, I need
yeah,
to tweak
yeah.
it now and do it a little bit differently. Um, and then on the Saturday, I tend to do either on Friday night, Saturday morning, is do the actual writing it up, getting a graphic together,
Mm.
doing the post, doing the LinkedIn script itself for the post, and putting it up and having it scheduled then to go on Saturday. So I've got very close to the wire a couple of times, but I've
I was
managed
just
to
about to
have
say.
the discipline to do it once a week, and so far so good. It's you kind of get into the swing of it then after a while.
Yeah, yeah. You haven't got a batching kind of a week ahead of yourself yet. No.
Not quite. No, I've been thinking about it, but
The
every
summer
week,
holidays are coming.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. But no, it's funny how it's something pops into my head at least every week, you know.
Yeah.
And it tends to be based something that's happened at work or something that's happened in life or something I've read somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah.
It kind of gives me a little bit of a spark to, oh yeah, no, that's a good one to go with this week.
Yeah, and I like to I keep a note on my phone for ideas. So if
Yeah.
I could be watching anything or like that, could be doing anything and just you just get the hit and
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
no, it's
Microsoft OneNote is my best friend. I constantly use Microsoft OneNote on my phone. Yeah.
yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? So tell me, Trevor, about so you've had not just one transition, but transitioning between many
Mm.
different careers, I guess, and to where you are now, and this work you're doing now in leadership online. Um, has was there any kind of like a sense of because for a lot of clients and people listening to this podcast now who I work with service businesses who want to grow their business online and I guess a lot of people sometimes have a lot of fear and judgments about their visibility online, and I suppose being seen, their friends, their ex-colleagues seeing them. Oh, what are they doing now? And oh, so when people come to me, a lot of the time, it's um, I suppose especially people who are starting out, it's getting over that fear of visibility, it's getting over the fear of judgment, and it's getting over yourself and then
Hmm.
just going for it. Now you've had an acting background, so maybe you never had those problems, but any of
Yeah,
that ring a bell for you?
completely,
Yeah.
absolutely had it as much as anybody else. And I would have had a theatre background. I was on stage loads. I'd been a public speaker. I was in the Shannon for 7 years. So I was public speaking, going to public meetings, etc.
Yes.
Uh, when I was getting ready for the TED Talk, I was absolutely petrified, to be honest, because it was really outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I was well used to doing a talk with notes or with a PowerPoint or with a teleprompter, but when I had to go and I had to have it all in my head, etc., I was petrified, but it was a great discipline to do it. And on the LinkedIn stuff itself, I was absolutely, I had that, imposter syndrome
Mm,
completely of, I'm going to put this out there now and nobody's going to want to read it.
yeah.
Everybody's going to think it's a load of crap.
Yeah.
Who am I to be telling anybody anything? You're constantly reminding yourselves of all the times you failed.
Yes.
Just had to try and get over it. And thankfully, the first couple of articles, I got such nice positive feedback from people, and people saying, that there were no, there aren't an awful lot of people in Ireland, in particular, writing on this in this space. You find a
Mm,
lot of Americans writing in this space, and there's all,
yes.
and they're full of bravado. They're not a bit shy at coming
No.
forward. So it was really, really positive, and I think it was from people who I really respect coming back to me, and even people like yourself, Martha, just getting a lovely message from you after the TEDx really
Yeah.
lifted me. and gave me an
Really?
awful lot of confidence. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact that Cormac contacted me as well and asked me to do the TEDx, it really did. It made an awful impression on me that, I must be doing something right. Um,
Yeah. And I think
yeah,
as well, I fully believe that we're all here to deliver some form of our own personal magic into the world and, to use it up. I want to leave this world feeling I've nothing left. It's all on the pitch, you know.
absolutely.
And I mean, it can be very, I know from a lot of clients, it can be very daunting. And I think there comes a point where you have to kind of put a line in the sand and say, right, that's it. You know, because I know when I first started, I felt like a flower that I was holding my leaves so tight and it got so painful that it was actually easier just to fucking, come out, you
Yeah.
know. And I remember I was watching the movie, what's it called? Cinderella with my kids. And just at the end where she comes down the stairs and the narrator says, and the hardest part was revealing who she really was. And I was just sitting there
Mhm.
going, ooh,
Yeah.
that's what we're all doing. And I think when you're working for yourself and when you're putting your own knowledge um and your own self out online, there's nowhere to hide. And really, you have to dial up you and dial up your message because the people who really want to work with you will really identify with that. And
Yeah.
when you close yourself in any bit, you're hiding your uniqueness. So I think you have just, I mean, from doing these LinkedIn newsletters to getting on TEDx, it's just incredible. So are you delivering this real leadership now, Trevor?
That would be the next steps really. So I'm really I really believe in this thing about you say what's our legacy going to be? I want to leave the world with having developed more leaders, to be honest, and to
Yeah.
be in the knowledge that they no matter what sphere they're in, they're going to move the world into a better place, and they can overcome any problems that there are in the world. And God knows we have an awful lot of them at the moment.
And I
Um,
think I think as
yeah,
well, I suppose younger people now moving up in the world, they're going through so many different life experiences with online and social media, and even not being as personable and not having the people skills. Like my daughter there last week, she couldn't make a friend's birthday. And I said, I'll just ring your friend and just tell her sorry, And she, oh, I'll just text her. And I said, no. I said, you pick up the phone and you ring her. And it was such a big thing. And
yeah,
she did, but she ended up being on the phone for half an hour. And I said, now you see, that text would have been over in 2 seconds, and keeping that people connection. So I think the work that you're doing is going to have such a massive impact on everybody, really.
yeah, and I'm hoping to do a lot more. So my next steps are, where do I take the LinkedIn articles to? I'd love
Yes,
to, I'm hoping we'll develop seminars or workshops
brilliant.
in person, do them around the place. I've been talking to a couple of different guys and women who are involved in kind of a mentorship program as well for people working in the sphere that I'm working in. I'm hoping we can build on that together as well. Around the leadership skills, not just because you tend to have a lot of courses going. People go to courses to do kind of practical, functional things,
Yeah.
but the leadership elements, I think, are really, really important. I think we'll learn. I think you'll have people with technical competence all the time. You talked about being
Mm,
in tech organizations and people getting promoted, and one of the things I've seen is that there was a tendency in the past for people to get promoted based on their technical expertise.
mm,
Uh, Whereas what we're looking for, say in TGCR, where I'm working at the moment, is we always look for emotional emotional intelligence and a growth mindset and people skills. Those people, if it's somebody who's going to be in it, managing other people, because
mm,
you find sometimes that people with the technical experience aren't as strong on the people development stuff, and that's where you develop the leadership. And I can see in organizations I've worked in that that's where you tend to have conflict and issues and problems if you don't
completely.
develop those skills. So I think it's about developing leadership in all those levels. Hopefully, part of the plan is to write a book
Oh,
and get the book out
brilliant.
of that. So yeah, so yeah, once I get a bit more material up, But what I'm really delighted with, and one of the reasons I chose 6 months, was I thought at least if I could do 6 months of articles, which is 26 articles, I'd then have the
A
basis
book.
possibly of the book. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
So
exactly. And so over the years, Trevor, what would have been, I guess, have you any stories of leadership um that helped you, I suppose, create your own leadership, or experiences that grew you, or was there anything that when you look back kind of were they difficult situations, or they
I
always come
suppose,
from difficult situations, don't they?
yeah, I suppose my philosophy is I never had a plan.
Yeah,
It's really interesting when you get to my age, looking backwards, you can see there was a reason for everything happening. And I'm a
yeah,
great believer in serendipity and things happening for a reason. And I do believe there's a higher power that's guiding all of this stuff anyway. But I never actually had a plan, a career plan as such. But
yes,
one thing I learned from my wife, she's a great phrase, which she says, you can only ever take the next best step. You know, if you try and look too far ahead, you just get bamboozled with where you're trying to go to. And you
yeah,
have to, I think you have to trust, you have to do the groundwork, you need to do your research, but you need to trust your gut as well. I think we all know what the next best
mm,
step is. And that for me was very, like it's been meant that I've been in situations where I've changed career a couple of times, and I've gone from being in jobs where I was getting really well paid, doing really well, could have made a career within a certain sector, and decided it doesn't feel right anymore, but I need to go in a different direction. Uh, Taking a complete career change, kind of like a leap of faith, taking a cut in wages, and then worked through that and come up very quickly again to be in a better position than I was in the previous role. And
wow,
that's happened on a couple of occasions. So I think that not to be afraid to take that leap.
yeah,
If you feel it's in your gut, it'll be the right step.
yeah. And
And you
I,
can't
I,
trust it.
yeah, I think it's that's something I say to clients is I call it, tuning, listening, tuning. But let's say I turned the big 50 this summer, right? And I feel it's only in the last year or two that you learn to listen to the gut. I think maybe when you're younger, you're too busy or whatever. But have you any tips for anyone listening to this? How they can tune in a bit more and listen, or be self-guided, I guess.
Yeah, what I came across recently was I came across this book of cards around values. What are your basic values? So
Mm,
I can't remember the name of the deck, but basically had 76 or something values that you could have. And what you do is you whittle it down to the 10 most important to you.
mm-hmm,
So I think really it's about knowing yourself, knowing your values, knowing what you feel is right and what's wrong,
mm-hmm,
and always trying to find a role or carving. Number one, if you have your own business, that you're working on something that you believe in ethically, that you have a passion
mm,
for, and that you really like doing. I mean,
mm,
I'd say to my own kids, and I'd say to a lot of, say, I'm working in the HR end of TGCAR here. I'd always say to the young people I meet is your passion is your path. If you do
oh,
what
I
you're
love that.
passionate about, if you do what you're passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life. You really
Yeah,
won't. And you will shine because people around you will notice your energy and your excitement, etc. You'll make an impression and they'll want more of what you're doing. The
mm.
opposite is true, is if you're doing something just for the sake of the money or because you think it's, I see a lot of people apply for jobs just to get into an organization, say I want to work there, but they don't
Foot
have a
in the door.
foot in the door, and it's generally can tend to be a wrong
Mm,
spot or a wrong fit. So your passion is your path. Find what you're passionate about and do that, and do it to as well as you can. Uh,
mm,
and then make sure that that's based on a set of values that you're true to, and always make your next decision based on those values. And don't be afraid to take a leap of faith, because life is short. We just never know what's going to happen.
that's for
And
sure.
the other thing I suppose I've learned is that the 9 times out of 10, the things you're worrying about never materialize. Um, it's very rare that they do. So we build up these things in our head that it's going to be catastrophic, or
Mm,
we can't do that. But we're very resilient. We can bounce back. We can adapt. We can change. And I think we're very fortunate living where we live, with all the opportunities we have available to us in a society that allows for diversity and is rich. We're healthy. We have an awful lot of opportunities to do stuff. So we really don't have any excuses to not go for
mm.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you said there. Your passion is your path. Um, uh, Great advice there. And I think bringing it back home again to your main topic, the real leadership, I guess, finding resilience and empowerment and authenticity within yourself, wherever you are in life and whatever leadership role. I guess everyone has some form of a leadership role. And I think if anyone's listening to this, I just love the way you formulated, because that was the one thing that really hit me when I was sitting in the TEDx talk. When I left, I still remembered real leadership. It
Hmm.
really stuck with me. It was simple, and I guess one of the things I guess I've learned in my own life through I've had fairly good few transitions as well, is that, you know, if we can help younger people coming up understand about real leadership, younger managers, I guess, all different levels, um, because life is hard sometimes, work can be hard sometimes, and when you have a tool like this, it's just like something to lean back on, you
Yeah.
know. So I think, look, I think we could all do with some real leadership. So if
But I
anyone
think,
is,
Mark, that those young people they teach us an awful lot if we
yeah,
just
that's
listen.
for
I
sure.
mean, I'm really, we're blessed here. Like there's some of the young talent that's coming into our organization. They're so,
Really,
yeah, they're really driven. They know what they want. They're full of energy. They're full of fun. Um, they know what's right with the world. They know what's wrong with the world, and they're not afraid to say it.
wow,
And they question us as well, which is good. And we have to be open to that. We're
yes.
still learning. We're always going to be learning.
Oh gosh, we're always learning every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every
So
day.
yeah, so that's another part of the leadership thing. And at the end of the day, I think we have to remember we're all insignificant. You know,
Yeah,
when we do pop our clogs, there will be possibly, hopefully, a funeral, people will cry, but life will go on, and life has always gone on. And not to take our own significance, don't blow up our own significance out of proportion.
yeah.
We do what we can do, and we try our best. And if we can help to influence others to try and do their best as well, I think that's a good way to go.
I think it's a great way to go, and I think you're about to create an incredible legacy, Trevor. Sharing this message, helping people, and even the smaller messages around it about life, I think is very powerful. Don't take it too seriously. Have fun. Do your best. Um, so if anyone wants to contact you, Trevor, about real leadership, I guess LinkedIn is the place to go.
Yeah, it'd be the easiest place to find me. So I think there's only one Trevor O'Clochartaigh on LinkedIn, and if you put in real
I'll put a
leadership,
link actually in the show notes to your
yeah,
LinkedIn account. So if
great.
you're listening to this, if you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it, um, then you'll find the link down below. So go and make sure you subscribe. Don't just go and read one article. Go and subscribe to Trevor's newsletter. And I think having a bit of real leadership in your Sunday morning every week, gosh, it's something to look forward to, isn't it? So what time do you publish on a Sunday morning, did you say? Six.
6:30 Irish time. Yeah,
Oh,
so
super, super,
yeah,
super.
so we try and
Okay, well,
practice the two
Trevor,
time zones. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Well, listen, thanks so much for sharing today. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope if you're listening to this that there's so many nuggets actually. I think go back and actually listen to it again and make sure you share with a friend who you think needs some real leadership in their lives. Or if you have work colleagues, maybe share it around the office, share it with your managers, and get the word out about Trevor's work in real leadership. So thank
and
you so much for joining.
you can see the TEDx under TEDx Galway as well
Oh
on
yeah,
YouTube.
TEDx. Yeah, exactly. Go and watch that as well. There's so many super people actually on that night.
Yeah,
So thanks for joining me today, Trevor, and talk to you soon.
my pleasure. Thank you.